May 3, 2023, Blackburn, Lancashire. Blue police lights bathe an aging industrial estate on a quiet spring evening. A Toyota estate pulls up and comes to a stop outside an old unit known locally as the Old Fire Station. Officers move with precision. Commands are shouted. The scene is tense. Minutes earlier, a man in his 40s had collected the vehicle from a drugs courier, believing he was about to complete another routine handover. But what was about to unfold would reshape the region's understanding of organized drug distribution. When police force open the shutter to the unit, they find an extraordinary sight. Inside are 217 kilograms, roughly 478 pounds, of cocaine, imported from Belgium and concealed in ways designed to evade detection. Some of the Class A drug is hidden inside blocks of imported Gouda cheese, carefully packaged to mask its true nature. Other quantities lie in black bin bags, already sorted and prepared for collection by couriers. Police describe this as the largest cocaine seizure ever made by Lancashire Police, a haul with an estimated street value of more than £17 million. The discovery immediately suggests a far broader supply operation. Investigators later find that, between September 2022 and May 2023, the defendant had arranged deals involving more than 2 tons of cocaine, with a combined value exceeding £70 million across the UK. When officers moved in that night in Blackburn, they didn't just seize drugs, they unravelled a major organised crime network. The investigation quickly turns to the man linked to the unit. Salim Chowdhury, 46 years old, from Waterside, Blackburn. On paper, there is nothing remarkable about him. No public profile. No criminal notoriety that would draw attention on the street. And that is precisely the point. Blackburn's industrial estates are built for discretion. Rows of shuttered units. Limited foot traffic. Legitimate businesses operating side by side with long periods of silence. To most people, they are places passed without a second glance. To organized crime groups, they are ideal. Police and court findings later show how units like this are routinely used as logistics hubs, places where imported goods can be stored, repackaged, and moved on without attracting attention. Vehicles come and go. Deliveries look routine. Activity blends into the background of everyday commerce. Nothing appears out of place. Investigators determined that this operation was not improvised. It was not rushed. And it was not isolated. By the time officers forced entry in Blackburn, the infrastructure was already in place. Storage. Packaging. Distribution pathways. Police later conclude the supply chain had been active for months, and possibly longer, operating quietly, deliberately, and largely unseen. This was not a single delivery. It was part of a system designed to look ordinary, until it wasn't. What police begin to uncover next is not a lone organizer moving drugs himself, but a structure built to keep distance. At the center is coordination. Messages. Timings. Locations. Around it, a network designed to absorb risk. One of the names that emerges is Riedel Mohabbath. 28 years old, from South Shields, Tyne and Ware. Court evidence later shows his role was not to control supply, and not to profit at the highest level, but to move when instructed. This is where the operation shifts from storage to motion. In organized drug trafficking, couriers serve a specific purpose. They are replaceable, they are expendable, and most importantly, they create separation. They collect, they deliver, they wait. They do not ask questions. For organizers, this buffer matters. If a courier is stopped, arrested, or disappears, the structure above them remains insulated. Names stay hidden. Locations remain protected. Investigators later established that Salim Chowdhury's role was not hands-on transport. He was not dealing in small quantities, and he was not operating at street level. Instead, his involvement sat higher. Coordination, storage, onward distribution. Couriers like Mohabbath acted as moving parts within a wider system, one where instructions came down, and drugs moved across regions without the organizer ever needing to be present. The scale of this becomes clear only gradually. Early intelligence points to repeated movements. Familiar vehicles. Predictable patterns. Routes that begin to connect. Police later say this was not casual activity. It was organized, deliberate, and consistent with a supply operation designed to service demand well beyond a single town or county. Then, toward the end of 2022, something changes. The language used in communications shifts. The logistics become more complex. And the quantities being handled begin to grow. By late 2022, investigators conclude the amounts under discussion are no longer measured in kilos. They are measured in hundreds of pounds. At that point, this is no longer about distribution. It is about scale. And somewhere within the network, law enforcement is already watching, waiting to see how big it is willing to become. Between September 2022 and May 2023, the operation expands. Not suddenly, not recklessly, but steadily, in ways that only become obvious in hindsight. Police later determined that during this period, agreements are made to supply more than 4,400 pounds of cocaine, around 2,000 kilograms, with an estimated value exceeding £70 million. This is no longer opportunistic crime. It is logistics. At the heart of it is importation. Court findings show the cocaine is moved into the UK from Belgium, concealed inside blocks of Gouda cheese. On the surface, the shipments appear legitimate, food consignments, commercially packaged, low priority for casual inspection. To anyone scanning paperwork or watching deliveries arrive, there is nothing unusual. Cheese moves across borders every day. That familiarity is the cover. Once inside the UK, the process becomes clinical. Shipments are diverted to industrial units. The cocaine is extracted, broken down, and prepared for redistribution. Packaging changes. Quantities are divided. Routes are assigned. Nothing happens in one place for too long. Police later explain that this separation is deliberate. Drugs are handled in one location. Movements are organized elsewhere. Cash is managed away from both. Money does not travel with drugs. That distance is protection. But scale changes everything. As volumes increase, so does pressure. More couriers are needed, more vehicles are used, more timings must align. Every additional movement creates a trace. Investigators later describe how routine becomes risk. Patterns form. Vehicles reappear. Industrial units that should be dormant begin to show quiet activity at odd hours. Each success encourages the next shipment, each shipment raises the stakes. Behind the scenes, law enforcement is assembling fragments, financial records, vehicle movements, communications data, pieces that do not yet show the full picture but suggest something large is unfolding. By early 2023, the operation is moving faster, and faster operations leave less room for error. What had once been hidden inside ordinary cargo is now passing through too many hands, too many doors, too many roads. The system is growing, and with every increase in volume, the margin for staying invisible shrinks. By the spring of 2023, police later conclude the operation is no longer just vulnerable. It is exposed. All that remains is the moment when everything converges, and the entire structure comes into view at once. By the spring of 2023, the operation is no longer expanding. It has stabilized. Police later describe this stage as the point where the supply chain is operating at full capacity. Predictable, rehearsed, and confident. At the center sits the industrial unit at the old fire station in Blackburn. From the outside, it remains unremarkable. A location designed to blend in. A place where activity can be explained away as routine commercial use. Inside, however, the unit has taken on a new purpose. This is no longer just storage. It is a staging ground. On the day officers move in, court evidence shows cocaine already allocated for onward travel. 67 kilograms. Around 148 pounds, prepared for one courier. 63 kilograms, roughly 139 pounds, prepared for another. The drugs are not hidden or awaiting processing. They are packaged, counted and ready to move. Police later explained that this level of preparation only happens when timing is tight and confidence is high. Couriers are expected. Vehicles are scheduled. Delays are not anticipated. This is how the machinery works. Vehicles arrive separately, engines remain running, loads are transferred quickly. No lingering, no unnecessary conversation. Storage points are rotated, routes are varied just enough to appear random, cash is handled elsewhere, never alongside the drugs. It is compartmentalization by design. If one courier fails, another continues. If one vehicle is lost, the operation survives. If one location is compromised, others remain untouched. But full scale brings its own problems. By early 2023, law enforcement attention on organized supply chains has intensified nationwide. Border seizures are increasing. Import routes are under pressure. Patterns are being compared across regions. Investigators later say surveillance begins to tighten quietly. Nothing dramatic, no sudden raids, just attention. Vehicles noted, timings logged, industrial units visited more than once. Movements that once felt routine now carry weight. Each delivery becomes a calculation, each handover carries risk. And within operations like this, risk is cumulative. The more drugs prepared in advance, the more there is to lose. The more couriers involved, the more variables exist. The faster the pace, the thinner the margin for mistakes. Police later conclude that by this point, the operation has reached its most dangerous phase, not because it is failing, but because it believes it is secure. Confidence replaces caution, and confidence is often the moment when surveillance stops watching and starts closing in. By the time the shutters are forced open in Blackburn, the system is no longer just running. It is exposed. And everything inside the unit tells investigators the same thing. This was an empire at its peak, intercepted just before it could move again. By the 3rd of May, 2023, the investigation has reached its decisive phase. Lancashire police have surveillance in place, monitoring activity linked to the supply network they believe is operating across multiple regions. Officers are no longer piecing together fragments, they are waiting for confirmation. That confirmation comes during the course of the day. Police observe Salim Chowdhury taking possession of a Toyota estate from a known drugs courier. The exchange is brief and controlled, consistent with previous movements identified during the investigation. Chowdhury then drives directly to the industrial estate. There are no diversions, no attempts to disguise the destination. From an operational perspective, this matters. Investigators later explain that direct travel strongly suggests the vehicle is carrying a load intended for immediate handling, not storage at a secondary location. Police move to intervene. Officers secure the site and order the shutters of the industrial unit to be opened. Inside, the scale of the operation becomes fully visible for the first time. Officers discover 217 kilograms, 478 pounds, of cocaine inside the unit. Some of the drugs are concealed within blocks of imported Gouda cheese, while the remainder is packed into black bin bags, already organized and prepared for onward delivery. The layout of the drugs is methodical. Quantities are separated. Packaging is complete. This is not an incomplete shipment or an interrupted process. It is a distribution point, caught at the moment before movement. Police later described the discovery as the largest cocaine seizure ever made by Lancashire Police, a single recovery that immediately places the investigation among the most significant drugs cases in the force's history. Detective Sergeant Hayden Sibley later explains that the concealment method shows the lengths taken to avoid detection, with legitimate food imports used to disguise high-value Class A drugs moving into the UK. For investigators, the seizure confirms what months of intelligence had suggested. This was not a local operation, it was not short-term, and it was not small. The quantity recovered in Blackburn alone explains the seriousness of the charges that follow, and why the sentences eventually imposed reflect the scale, planning, and persistence of the criminal activity uncovered that day. What begins as a surveillance operation ends with a single moment of certainty. The supply chain has been exposed. And from this point forward, the case moves from investigation to prosecution, with consequences that will be felt for years. The moment comes quickly. On the 3rd of May 2023, after months of intelligence gathering, Salim Chowdhury is confronted at the industrial unit in Blackburn. Officers move decisively. There is no negotiation, no prolonged standoff. Chowdhury's reaction, according to police reports, is immediate. He realizes the situation has collapsed around him. The months of planning, the logistics, the couriers, and the shipments, all exposed in an instant. As investigators begin to piece together the evidence on site, his role becomes clear. Chowdhury was not a street-level dealer. He was the coordinator, the organizer, the person managing storage, distribution, and connections between couriers and suppliers. Every vehicle, every package, every handover can now be traced back to him. But the story does not end with one arrest. A key figure in the network emerges from the north, Riedel Mohabbath, 28, from South Shields, Tyne and Ware. On the 3rd of July 2023, police move in at his home. The search reveals more than just incriminating documents. Officers recover significant amounts of cash, stacked and counted. A cash counting machine used to handle high-value transactions. Suspected Class A drugs, packaged in varying weights, indicating ongoing activity even after surveillance had intensified. The discoveries in South Shields corroborate the patterns first seen in Blackburn, a sophisticated system with layers of separation, designed to reduce risk to organizers while maintaining a steady flow of drugs and cash. Meanwhile, investigators turn their attention to Chowdhury's own home. A search uncovers nearly £10,000 in cash, tucked away in what appears to be a standard household environment. It is small compared to the sums moving through the operation, yet it tells a clear story. The profits were being handled carefully, deliberately, and quietly. Each arrest, each search, adds layers to the case. Couriers, storage points, financial trails, all begin to converge, forming a picture of a supply network that is now fully exposed. For police, the net is tightening. Every detail uncovered increases the pressure, increases the stakes, and narrows the margin for those still involved. And in the quiet moments between raids and seizures, investigators note the lingering question: how far did this network truly extend before it collapsed? Because by now, the fall is in motion, and no one involved can escape the consequences. The case reaches Preston Crown Court, where months of investigation, surveillance, and seizure are laid bare in full. Both Salim Chowdhury and Riedel Mohabbath enter guilty pleas to conspiracy to supply cocaine. The courtroom listens as the prosecution details an operation that moved thousands of pounds of cocaine, used multiple couriers, and relied on industrial units as staging points, a network carefully managed to avoid detection, yet now fully exposed. The sentencing reflects the magnitude of the crime. Chowdhury is given 27 years and 6 months, Mohabbath 16 years. The judges underline the scale of supply, the length of the operation, and the risk posed to communities by cocaine flooding streets across the north of England. In court, prosecutors reveal further subtleties that had not been public before. Chowdhury's coordination extended beyond Blackburn, linking shipments to other northern cities, while Mohabbath's movements traced the pathways of distribution with precision, each detail contributing to the scale of the network. Police later reflect that the arrests in Blackburn were the moment the network collapsed. What had appeared as a shadowy, untouchable organization was, in reality, vulnerable once the surveillance pieces aligned. But even as the sentences are handed down, questions linger. How many deliveries were intercepted before reaching communities? How many others were never traced? The court exposes the known operation, but hints of its full reach remain just out of sight, a reminder of the hidden complexity of organized crime. The network is dismantled, its leaders imprisoned, but the echoes of their operation, the money, the routes, the couriers, leave a trail that will occupy investigators for months to come. The Blackburn operation left a mark that went far beyond a single arrest. Police describe it as the largest cocaine seizure in Lancashire's history, removing hundreds of kilos of Class A drugs from circulation and disrupting a major supply line that had stretched across the north of England. The case sends a wider message to organized crime: sophisticated concealment does not guarantee immunity. Large volumes attract attention, and complex logistics, no matter how carefully managed, leave trails that investigators can follow. For law enforcement, the operation is proof that careful surveillance, months of intelligence, and coordinated action can dismantle even the most organized networks. Years of planning and coordination, built to evade detection, were undone in a single afternoon, a reminder that no system is invincible, and that every move leaves a trace. The impact is felt not just in Blackburn, but across the wider region, signaling that high-level supply networks are vulnerable, and that serious organized crime will face the consequences of its own scale. Salim Chowdhury helped move cocaine worth more than £70 million. He hid it in blocks of cheese, packed it into bin bags, and relied on networks designed to shield him from detection. But in the end, none of it mattered. It took one decision, one vehicle, one industrial unit, and an entire operation collapsed. If this case shocked you, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a true story that shows how organized crime really operates.